Dismiss count 1, driving without a license, and
That was a
count
hell of a
2,
trial.
driving without registration or proper tag. Those 2 are dismissed with prejudice for plea agreement. Recommendations for sentencing on the remaining count of insurance.
Still would recommend a fine of $300, a 4-month underlying, suspended for a 6-month non-reporting probation, as well as any costs or fees as the court deems fit.
Mr. Patterson, anything further?
Judge, we'd ask the court to adopt the recommendations, and as the court knows, I am appointed.
All right. Mr. DeBoos, do you have full-time employment where you work 40 hours a week?
No, I don't.
At this time, your fine is $300. That is the minimum for this charge by Kansas law. Your court costs are $108 for a total due of $408. I am waiving your attorney fees. You do have to receive a 4-month sentence, but I will grant you probation, so you won't have to serve that as long.
How sweet. She had absolutely nothing. They can't prove anything. If you go to trial, they lose most of the time, but they never go to trial most of the time because most people cop out. What the fuck was the point of going to begin with? Why would they dismiss all the rest of it and let you plead to one if they didn't know that they couldn't get you on any of it? And people still can't figure out the game, right? Not to say that they wouldn't take you to trial and steamroll you some places, a lot of places potentially, but that's the risk you got to take. That's the gamble, you know. And I think most times they ain't got it. Your thoughts, the freak, Mr. Benjamin here apparently enjoys your slavish ways and interacting with you. He gets some kind of perverse enjoyment out of it.
I just feel incomplete.
Well, you know, a lot of these judges now are making people go through these competency tests and whatnot before they decline attorneys and all this other stuff. And I just think that a lot of this stuff is being cracked down on, and that means that, you know, the whole movement, whatever it is going to have to shift. But that's not why I'm here. I'd actually really like to query Ben about his ideology.
Listen, if you're going to query, you got to do it off this broadcast because I might get banned for that. I know what you're into, but.
That was funny.
All right, go ahead.
Hilarious.
That was funny. So last time I asked you if you were a pro-Palestine Rothschild, and I don't think I ever got an answer.
I answered you that the question is ridiculous because the Palestinians are actually Hebrews, and the whole thing is a more complex question. Why do you want to put me in a linear box, A, B, this, and pigeonhole something that should not be asked or answered in that manner?
Fair enough. All right. What do you think about Alex Jones?
Already covered yesterday.
All right. I missed that.
And quite honestly, I don't really care. How is that ideology?
I'm just picking your brain, trying to figure out where you're at and stuff.
Feels more like you're picking your nose.
Funny, I guess, but
I'm not trying to be funny. We're not talking about anything.
All right. Well, you talked about these rituals and these sacrifices and these blood whatever they were and stuff like that.
My opinion about that for tonight is about as good as Paul's opinion about being uneducated and remaining uneducated and ignorant of the legal society. I don't give a fuck. It is not my ideology. So if you want to talk about, how about stop associating me with the Ross Shields bullshit that I don't adhere to and walked away from? If you want to ask me questions that might actually produce something useful for people to catch on to, why don't we talk about that?
That sounds fine. What do you you had a God formation type of ideology you were talking about 3 days ago?
Pardon me.
Well, the way that
I understand now. Yeah. Yep. Sure.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if you could actually explain that, or if you believe that, and if you could explain that again.
Oh yeah, I could explain it if it's a little, probably very boring for most people, albeit maybe important, but effectively, if we come from a singular point, which everything from the actual, even the religions, if you really know what they're saying, the wisdom systems, Aristotle talking about a prime mover, anybody who uses cognitive reason and not something else understands that everything came from a singularity. But then the problem is that y'all, and I say y'all as in especially evangelical Christians like yourself, and many, many more, give that original singularity powers that it can't possibly have. Or in literary use, you deus ex machina, you make well, literally God out of a machine, but more from the literary sense, what it means is you make up stuff out of necessity because it couldn't possibly fit beside that. Is that enough to help you understand?
I mean, it's a start, so the singularity God is okay.
No. Why are you using that master God word? Let's get away from that. If we're going to talk about the actual nature of existence, we have to understand anybody's using cognitive reason. First premise, anybody using cognitive reason grasps that if we see a multiplicity of things now, and everything from a flower to a human, everything comes from something else, that if we put everything back inside the thing it came from, eventually we reach a singular point. So anybody who's using actual holistic cognitive reason will understand that we came from a singular point. And if you ask the retarded slave question, what came before that, you're a moron and you have flung out of the wrestling ring, the boxing ring, and you're no longer in the discussion because clearly there you reach a place where nothing came before that thing. And when it comes to that thing, you can't give that thing qualities that it cannot possibly have.
I agree with you.
Is that simple enough for you?
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Okay, so there's an origin point, and we can't ascribe to the origin point things that the origin point can't possibly have as qualities. And if you stick to this, then you'll understand everything down to natural law and what it actually means and why the slave needs to enslave themselves. If you actually stay with that and carry it through with every mathematical and logical simplicity, you won't make mistakes. You won't misunderstand.
So, you believe in God?
I believe that question is out of order.
It's out of order. Okay.
Yes.
Do you pray?
Okay, let me walk behind you and ask you psychologically so you speak more directly and transparently. Why are you asking me that question now? What are you attempting to pigeonhole me into next? If you were still figuring out, you would have gone back to where we left the thing and said, what comes next in this alleged cosmology? Not move me to somewhere where you're going to attempt to pigeonhole me again into an A-B situation of, because I don't even know if you really know what the word believe or God means. So can we stop using ambiguous terms? If you want to return to a real analysis of the realm, world, beingness we find ourselves in, can we return to where we were? I'm helping play your side now, so this is smarter.
Okay, go ahead.
We'll ask the next question, or I could suggest the next question.
Please do.
Well, why don't you suggest what are some of the qualities, we'll use your particular camp, which I am assuming is evangelical, but some kind of Protestant Christianity, I'm guessing.
That would be correct.
And what are some of the things that you allege can be applied to this original singularity of beingness that might not actually make sense? You want to take a guess?
I believe what you say about the singularity, the singularity God, the way you explained it. I think that is actually correct. And if there was anything before him, we wouldn't know unless he showed us. So he's still our God.
You already did some fatal error there. You just gave it him, why? I wouldn't even call it or use pronouns. I mean, that singularity, that beingness, because we're jumping ahead a lot here. But also, you don't agree with me if you hold standard. I hear that you're isolating lines that I just said, that you support the idea that if we reach a singularity, there can't be anything before it. That's just common reason. But you don't support what I'm saying, as if you toe the line of the standard evangelical Christian or Protestant Christian, you don't agree with what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, I
You
agree with
don't- you
that
just
point
don't
that you said.
You're just not smart enough to work out the next steps in logic to reason out the fact of why and what you don't even understand with, so I'll have to help you. What are some of the qualities that you apply to the singularity that I wouldn't? Well, I'll suggest one. Omnipotence, omniscience, and anything infinite, because it doesn't make any sense. You are supposing that a singularity can have any of these qualities, which is ridiculous because the actual nature of the singularity is simply unawareness. Do you understand that?
No, I would disagree with that. The singularity is the all knowledge of everything.
That is retarded. That is your Deus Ex Machina. That is what you don't even understand
That's
that you
the
don't
Borg
understand.
collective.
No, that is where you don't even understand what you don't understand. So because I've worked as hard as I have on this, let me see if I can make this simple enough for you to understand. The nature of our singularity, of our original state of being, as we use useful terms to help slower, simpler people grasp that you're part of it, the nature of our singularity, our original beingness, is on awareness. So for instance, if you want to look at it from a 3D perspective, and 3D is kind of an odd, funny way to put it because of what I'm going to say, but we know what we mean down here in the realm we live in. And you go into geometry class, you put a single dot on the paper, and because we're not going to be retarded, spare me the paper, the desk, and the classroom. You only have the working model. You have a dot. That means there is not anything else but the dot. And until you have the colloquial idea of a relationship takes two, because you need something to say, this is this here, this is that there. That is relating now. So if you take our actual singularity of beingness, you don't have anything else yet. That is the part you agreed with, and anybody with common sense and common reason that can look at this agrees with. If you don't have
hold on 1
anything
second.
else, if you don't have anything else yet, there's no, well, I don't need you to do this. I can do this to the audience. If you don't have anything else yet, you have no relatability, and the station of our singularity is on awareness. The most advanced question in all of existence and consciousness is, how does that which has on awareness gain awareness of its on awareness to desire to produce awareness or relationship or the Christ experiment? The beauty of that question is, with no dodging, it's legit to not answer that question. The reason it's legitimate to not answer that question is because we have agreed, or those who are following this track here have agreed, that there is an original singularity. And now we can look around with our little consciousness in this world and we see that we have multiplicity. So the reason we don't need to answer this question now, and it is fair not to answer this question now, is because we can see we did this. So if you look at the actual nature of our singularity, and that it is by essence unaware, that is the nature of that singularity, because there's not anything else yet but it. Therefore, denying relationship, it can't have awareness without a relationship. And we can see that there is now multiplicity. There's lots of things having little consciousness and awareness and relationships. Therefore, we accomplish that task. So while it is the most advanced question in this discussion of consciousness to ask how we went from unawareness, gaining awareness, that it was in unawareness to even want awareness, we don't actually need to answer it now, which also doesn't mean I don't have an answer. As far as I can tell, as far as I've been around people who are very, very high up in Tibetan Buddhism, people who are at the highest echelons of Kabbalah, and a few different things, people way up in Hinduism where I was in India. The reason I have the answer to this, which I found that nobody else had the answer to, is because I understand the question. And I also understand the question enough to make it as simple as I just did, that the question doesn't even need to be answered now, because if we agree on this beginningness and we see the way it is now, and we understand that that beginningness is on awareness did somehow gain awareness of its on awareness to want and crave to move into awareness, which is the condition that we now exist in as this big experiment. The desire for awareness. And this is what your Song of Songs is talking about, the bride and the bridegroom, Eros Gamos, the merger of opposites. So now we understand that we started with on awareness. So if we start in on awareness, creation is actually the instant at which this most advanced thing happens. Creation is the instant when unawareness gains awareness somehow of its unawareness and then moves straight from needs, because in the state we started, there were no needs. We moved straight from needs, jumped over that, and went to wants. We went to desire. Because if you grasp that the nature of the singularity is that there is not anything else but that singularity, and since everything that exists now was inside of the singularity, you can't really say that our original state of being, that singularity, was lacking anything, but yet you can. Because the thing that we were lacking was that there should be anything else, or awareness, or relationship. So the only
Hey, Ben. Hey, Ben, are you having any awareness that you're ignoring me?
Jack, we can get back to you later. So
long
if the only
different
thing,
issues that
if the
I just want to try and
because
separate
we
some of
need
these things.
no, because this is what you do. You once this is formalized, this part is formalized. You don't get to say the fuck shit you say later. Once this is put into place that it can't be different than
Yeah,
this,
that's why I'm asking now.
none of y'all wisdom systems, religions, and anybody else who's adhering to trance-based belief, you can't say the shit you say later. That's why this is
Right.
going to be long. And until it's exactly clear that it can't be different than this, because it would fundamentally flaw the reason involved in the track on it, you can't say the shit you're going to say later. If we're dwelling, if we start in singularity, we agree in the singularity. The nature of the singularity is unawareness.
All right.
What it lacks is a relationship.
Stop right there.
So if there's, I'm not going to stop until I finish my paragraph, because you're lacking is relationship. Therefore, the only thing that we want at that stage is that there should be anything else. Now, that's creation. Creation is the instant in which we realize we exist. The state we exist in is alone. There is not awareness, and we suddenly have this craving and want for there to be awareness. So we've called it awareness, relationship, and the last point of vernacular is am wants to know am self as am self is. Now we're going to get to where you get confused and believe this is creation, and it will answer your question about God. And that is production and manufacture. Once we realize our condition, once we realize we want to have a different condition, that's creation, that instant of inspiration. But now how are we going to do it? And how are we going to do it is often seen by most people who get to a shallow level of understanding of this as creation. But it's actually the production or manufacture of the desired condition. And that's where you come in. Because at the phase that we do a thing that's listed in John as the Logos becoming embodied, or John 3:16, the first begotten soul, the first begotten anything. What you do here is, if you take a garment that came straight off the factory line, everybody in these wisdom systems and religions, they like to focus on the Messiah, which is interesting, but really the Messiah is a direct production. So less important than the indirect production. And that's how you guys all get your supreme being God, is because you forget about the indirect. You forget about. You just
answered your awareness question right there.
So if you actually take the original state, moving out into what it comes to desire by discovering it's a lone state of unawareness or no relationship yet. The only thing it can do, if you say this is the original state and this is all it's ever been, and you want to get two, and
but if you believe that, how can you get offended when I call it him?
Hold on. When you look in, I'll tell you in a minute, because first I'm going to finish. There's like just a little bit further to go with this beginningness of understanding. Because if you look in nature at every baby that subdivides in the embryo, if you look at every botanical plant, everything, in order for, if there's not anything else, the only thing our original nature can do is part itself, is subdivide. That's it, because there's not anything else. And this is one of the qualities that you would do if you wanted to make an Aristotelian, Western, linear cerebral God who's going to make something of a creation that's outside. It violates grammar, so it violates reason, so it violates reality. Because that God, if it were your way, would have to create something over there. And over there does not exist yet. Because if there's only a singularity, you can't give it infinite capabilities of potency, because it violates math and grammar. Therefore, if the singularity is a singularity in unawareness, and there's not anything else, and it doesn't have a relationship, and am doesn't have awareness of am yet, you can't say there's over there. You can't say there's a God here that's going to put creation over there, because over there is a thing and there is not anything else yet. So the first thing the singularity needs to do is become two, but it can't just do this. So it's more like, if you look at the garment, we have to wrinkle ourselves anywhere. That's direct production. That's the Messiah soul. That's the original soul and first soul, which is actually
go.
fundamentally less important, because that was the direct production. It's much less important than the indirect production, which is the rest of the garment. And that's what y'all leave out, is acknowledging
But you
the
just
rest
answered
of
the
the
question that
garment.
you said was unanswerable.
No,
which is also
hold on.
in the
I'm
Bible.
almost done. I've got like 2 more sentences or pieces of this to show you what I'm talking about. As soon as that Messiah soul gets directly produced, the rest of the shirt is indirectly produced. And that's the fundamental thing. What is indirectly produced, the rest of it. So now you went from wanting anything else. That's the little wrinkle, the Messiah soul. And what you got in the process of getting the anything else is the everything else. And once you realize we've got anything else, which leaves behind everything else, you know what you don't have anymore? The supreme being you started with, dumbass. Because you no longer have our original state of being. Our original state of being became the next phase of the process. It became an individuated piece here, the wrinkle, and it left behind the indirect. Everywhere else that's going to actualize, realize, and become beingness. How? Because this wrinkle has a quality that the rest of it doesn't. All of this is feminine field. Thanks, Jack. All of this indirect is feminine field. This has the only masculine catalyst there is, and it's going to give it. Be fruitful and multiply. There's far more of it. That's as much as you need to understand now, because that precludes your version of God. And it is mathematically and reasonably impossible for you to go Deus Ex Machina out of necessity of what you need there to be, and assign to unawareness qualities that it would need to have had already gone through this process in order to have a priority. Now when you say stupid things, now when you say all the stupid shit you're going to say, I'm just going to reference what I just said, and it's going to be a lot easier, and I can say less words. Go ahead.
Well, it could do that in eternal time, because it's
See, there you go. Deus Ex
complete
Machina.
from
Shut
the
the fuck
start,
up. You just lost.
okay?
Fuck you. You just said a Deus Ex Machina.
No,
You made some
plus
shit up. That
you
doesn't
got
fit.
offended. Plus
You
you,
just
got
made up
offended
eternal-
that I
I'm not
called it
offended.
him
You're
at the
dumb. You
beginning
just
when you
made up
said it was
eternal time.
singularity.
You made up
But how would it
eternal
even
time.
know? And so why would you even be offended?
Can we
at
just
that,
one
okay?
point at a time?
And then
one
you
point at
answered
a
your
time.
question
You just
with
made up
the
eternal
Messiah,
time.
okay?
Please,
And that
please,
is
eternal
the
time.
bridge between
Please.
us and the Father,
The
who
freak,
is not
please.
human, but Jesus is. Right?
You're not talking about anything. You're talking about buzzwords. Can you please go back into the archetypal neutral way I just said it? Put it. Why are you using your buzzwords from your damn book? And tell me what eternal time is.
Eternal
You just
time
made that
is
up.
the
That's
realm
Deus
that
Ex
God lives
Machina.
in.
See why I said what I said? That's Deus Ex Machina. You're making up something out of necessity. What is eternal time?
It's the realm that God lives in.
You know, eternal time is about as dumb as Sobsit. Those are oxymoronic.
Eternal time is
And you're
having
just
access
moronic.
to any point in time.
If it's eternal, there's no time. Dumbass.
If eternal time is having access to any point in time.
That sounds like something different that quantum mechanics has words for, but if it's eternal, there's no time. Do you mean like
Well,
sixth
it's
dimensional
complicated, but-
overlooking the third dimension? Really? No, you're just stupid. I believe you mean something like sixth or seventh dimensional overlooking the third dimensional world, at which point you would be looking like down into a dollhouse and you could see from an aerial view. But that's not eternal. That's interdimensional.
Well, God is both of those, actually. So
Who's God?
He can
You haven't
access
even-
any point in time in any given
Who's
dimension
God?
in any
How-
realm whatsoever.
Who's God? You're citing your dumbass
The
book.
God
You're
of
citing your
Abraham.
trans cult words. The God of Abraham.
Yeah.
Yeah, that gets us a lot further if we just woke up on an island. Who the fuck
God
saved
Well,
us?
damn
what other gods have even bothered to show themselves in the earth at all?
Define your terms, the freak. As if I have no idea what you're talking about. Because I actually don't.
All right. So who's actually left us scripture that we can go to reference who he is and what he tells us who he is?
This particular version, that would have been Emperor Constantine in Rome, sir.
So you're suggesting
What about
that
the scriptures of the
all,
Buddhists? What about the scriptures of the Hindus? What about the scriptures of the Muslims? There's a lot of scriptures. Why is your book
Right.
so book, super book?
Those were written by sad Negroes.
well, you have history and archaeology.
Freak, man, that
you have
ain't
written
right.
Testimony. You have current testimony. You have prophecy, all testifying.
All according to you and your
Against-
people.
you.
Look at the
Wait a
freak women.
second. Look at this. Look at the magic. So Slackcott playing his power games instead of just coming
So,
here
anyhow,
goes to the freaks
You had this whole
failure
elaborate
channel
story.
and then describes himself, saying he's describing other people again. He loves doing this. He loves playing this game. This guy's convinced he knows everything and that everyone else is wrong. The hubris and bitter arrogance is familiar. Yeah, that's you. Of course it's familiar. Great stuff, man.
I believe
Yeah.
he means,
It writes
I believe
itself.
I believe he means fragrance. He's familiar with this aroma.
Right. This is so great.
I've
Can we do
smelled
this more
before.
often? Can you come over here more often and just say everyone else is exactly doing what you are?
Gotta fix this thing. Jack, you're welcome to join the show. I mean, you know how to get in here. DeFreak, can you define any of your terms yet? What's eternal about time and who's
I
God?
claim to know only what I have done, which is
Jack, you get to receive what you receive, man. Jack, do you even know everything you've done?
You get to receive what you receive. I know what I'm offering. And I'm offering, well, I don't know. Thoughts, Chandler?
the wisest fool I've ever met.
Sometimes you just have a brain fart.
Come on, freak. Pony up. Tell me what eternity is. Tell me what time is. Tell me what God is. Let's make some sense. Don't just pull lines from your book.
God is what he says he is in the scripture.
God
love, his
is
spirit.
what he says he is. So if you went in Webster's
Who he is.
dictionary and defined a word by itself, we would all be more enriched at understanding the word for sure.
He just left.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. It was a shutdown sequence initiated.
Well, that happened.
Yeah.
It's about as fulfilling as I expected.
All right. Well, I mean, it's been a while since Slackcott has come slithering around these parts to do his parasitic vampiric rap. If he wants to come on up, open forum for him and other slacker tards, what I like to call slacktivists at this point. So yeah, whatever you guys want to do, I'm open. We're at the 2-hour mark. That's my new checkout time. I've shortened it from 3 to 2 hours. Let me see. Well, I guess we can go Fleischer. I'll leave it open in the meantime. We'll go one Fleischer, and then if nothing else kind of develops, I'll wrap it up.
Deprive your brain of oxygen when you do this. Perhaps you'll hemorrhage yourself. Perhaps you'll end up brain dead. You'll
What, running a panel? Yeah, I know.
You're going to be without
I look at that.
You do this, and then you get out and it happens again.
No.
Mr. Stansky, you're charged with driving while intoxicated. The reason you're before me now is because you picked up a new case, and you picked up yet another possession or use of an abusable volatile. I don't even know what happened because today is the day set for arraignment on this case. What happened on the new case, if you don't mind?
Do you want me to read the case?
Yeah, please, because I have not even heard it to know what happened.
I also spoke to the witness yesterday, so I can tell you minutes. from
Great.
that. But on October 17th of 2024, officers responded to a public welfare check at the Dollar Tree located at 14324 FM 2920. A witness stated she observed the defendant inhaling from a can of multi-purpose cleaning duster and later observed the defendant slumped
Oh, yeah, it's
over on the
Ian's
steering
mom.
wheel of her motor vehicle in the parking lot. Upon officers' arrival,
Puffing gas.
officer observed the defendant sitting in the front driver's seat of her motor vehicle with the motor vehicle running in the on position. Officer also observed several cans of multi-purpose cleaning duster beside her. Officer observed the defendant to be confused and disoriented. She admitted that she had entered the office depot to purchase several cans of duster with the intent to inhale chemicals in a manner contrary to the directions, cautions, or warnings appearing on the label. And the defendant stated she did so to create or induce a condition of intoxication, hallucination, or elation. And she was found in possession of 3 10-ounce cans and 1 3.5-ounce can.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add to this?
Me, Judge? So the witness who spotted her, she had pulled into the Dollar Tree, parked there, and the defendant's motor vehicle was right next to hers, and she had noticed that it was on. So the witness, she went into the Dollar Tree, then went down to Target, did some shopping, came back an hour later and noticed that the truck was still there and still running. So she got worried, looked through the window, and then she found the defendant slumped over. She stayed watching her for a while to make sure she was okay. She didn't feel comfortable driving off. That's when the witness saw her lift her head up slowly and inhale from the can. Again, in front of the witness, and my witness, she told me, and then she slumped back down, and that's when the witness called 911 because she was worried about the defendant driving off in that condition.
I've spoken extensively with Ms. Stepanski about this, Your Honor.
You said the exact same thing to me when we came here the first time, and now she has a new case.
True statement, Your Honor.
How do we get her to stop?
Well, in talking to the state, so the plea agreement that we have agreed to with the state is the maximum length of probation to 2 years of probation. So that she'll be closely monitored during that time period.
I can't monitor her 24 hours a day, though.
Yeah, but she knows that she's, subject to, random testing or urinalysis and different things.
Still not going to show. I'm forbidding you from going to any store that sells this kind of stuff. You're not to go to any Walmart. You're not going to any Home Depot.
So she's also willing to sign a no driving affidavit, Your Honor, and so only her husband would be driving her anywhere. And so I think that, her husband threatened her to divorce. I mean, this is me being frank, over this. If this ever happens again, her husband's divorcing her, is what he's told her, and is going to be closely monitoring her, and she's not driving by herself.
You realize that what you're doing is you deprive your brain of oxygen when you do this. And at some point, perhaps you'll hemorrhage yourself, perhaps you'll end up brain dead, you'll incapacitate yourself, that you're going to be unable to, without the ability to speak.
You're gonna wind up like Slow State or one of these panel hosts.
You do this, and then
Slack
you get out
cock.
there and it happens again.
It scared me so much this time, and
I believe it. I believe it. I don't believe one iota. Nope. You sold me the same thing.
I'm currently
Months ago.
attending NA meetings, which I will continue to attend.
I think that, like I said, the combination of her not being able to drive to be able to go get this stuff, and her husband helping to monitor that, and the enforcement of the 2 years of probation, and making sure that she knows that, she's under surveillance, that I don't think it will continue to be a problem. I think that when there's been monitoring, there hasn't been a problem. This is just me kind of pulling back the curtain here because we're entering a plea.
Sure, Haddad, how do we get it to stop?
This is, man, I'm sorry, just if I could just finish that thought for a second.
Look, I'm all ears
Yes, sir.
with any recommendation as how to get it to stop, because I mean, it's not something that I can test that'll show whether someone's using or not.
Judge, at this point, I mean, I was hoping that the TRS would recommend something such as like HUA, that's like a intensive treatment made for women, that's.
Yes, I mean, yeah,
Thinking HUA might be a good place to put it. Right.
I think that that's the best thing that we need to do. Yeah, I think that,
But my opinion, Your Honor, is that the no driving affidavit will cover or will fix the problem. This was as soon as she started to drive, basically, it became the problem. You know, when the husband said, okay, you can drive, then she went to the store and did that. But without her being able to drive, and like I said, you know, the husband making sure that that's not happening, because again, he's not tolerating this.
is the husband here?
He is not here today, but I can get him here if you'd like, Judge.
I mean, I think, Michael, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think what we need to do now, and Craig, I think what we need to do now is have our TRAS to see where we go, because we have clinicians that will be able to tell us how to tackle this problem, because I'm truly at a loss of how to get it to stop, because theoretically, this is something that you can get anywhere, right? You can have it delivered through Amazon, right? So.
Sure, but that hasn't been her MO of doing any of this. I understand you. I hear your words.
She's been able to drive.
I understand.
Right.
Well, she wasn't able to drive for a while after this happened or whatnot, and then it wasn't a problem. And then when driving resumed, then that resumed being a problem. So that's why I think
I don't know that for
the
sure.
no driving affidavit would fix that.
Ms. Brown?
I mean, I've explained to her that, you know, what she's signing up for, you know, is a lengthy probation. It's a 2-year probation with potential constant monitoring that whole time, plus whatever TRS conditions and other kind of help that they can, you know, help her with. And then, you know, that if she messes up in probation, that she signed up for, you know, 180 days in jail, you know, that's, you know, what she's understanding. I know that when she was in jail, she spent 3 days in jail on this new offense or whatever. And I know that that was a pretty devastating experience for her. She's, you know, 65 years old and, you know, takes a ton of medicines, which she didn't get and stuff when she was in jail. And I know that was a big deal. She's having panic attacks in jail and things. But I think the conditions that we've agreed to with the state are sufficient. I mean, I wouldn't have signed up.
I mean, I'd like to put on there no possession of any kind of volatile container that can be abused
That's
to get
fine.
high. I want, you know, no going to Home or Office Depot, Walmart. Ma'am, I want you to understand that if I find you with another of these containers, and I don't care what you're doing, where you're going, who you're with, I'm going to put you in a rehab facility in the jail. And I mean, if that's what we need to do to get you to stop, I'm going to do it in a heartbeat. Do you understand? I mean, you're killing yourself.
Daddy
slowly.
Fleischer
That's all
loves
that's
his
happening.
slaves.
And the problem is that everyone around you is suffering. What happens if you do this in the middle of the road while you're driving? I mean, God, if you kill someone, you get charged with murder. Is that the last thing we want you to do is to spend the next 30 years of your life in prison because of a drastic and catastrophic event where you kill someone. And in that kind of stupor state, if you're in a car, you're begging for it to happen. Okay, so I guess I'd like to do the TRAS to see where we go. So what we're gonna do is I don't know how to move forward with this, Ms. Stefanski. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have you evaluated by our clinicians to see what they suggest is the best way to go forward. So I'm gonna have you meet with them, and I want you to be honest, because I want to move forward in the best way possible. If you're not honest with them, you know, a motion to revoke can be filed. You know, we'll put you in custody and we'll do it next time in custody. I don't want to have to do that. So be honest in the evaluation. Be honest with yourself. No, I'm now taking away your privilege to drive for a year. You're not allowed to drive. You're not allowed to use any kind of, be in possession of any kind of container where you can get high from it. And I don't want you to go to any Office Depot. I don't want you to go Walmart or any of these places that you can also buy these from. You understand?
Sir.
It's 180 days in jail, probated for 2 years. You will do thinking for a change, a DWI education class, 2 victim impact panels, a TS, with the conditions you must fulfill: substance abuse treatment, no breath test refusal, no drugs, no alcohol, guardian interlock so that we know that you're also not consuming alcohol, and a one-time donation of $100 to Matt. Is this how you understand the agreement?
Yes, sir.
I think the max is a year, right? On the first, it's a year.
For probation, you mean?
Yeah. For license suspension, I think the max is a year. I mean, if it was 2 years, if I can do 2, I'd rather do 2, because I think that I just don't want you to go anywhere near a car until this problem has been tackled. Do you understand, man? Do you have any questions?
Sir.
You know, there are other things in life that give you that kind of rush instead of using a can. You need to find
Yeah, like
another
slaving.
outlet, but cans, that's not a good way.
Sign
go,
up to
because
slave other
you're really
slaves. It
gonna
gives
do
you a
some
rush, like what
irreparable
Fleischer's
damage
doing.
I mean, the last thing you need is to become a vegetable, and that's what invariably it's going to happen at one point or the other. How do you plead to the offense, Mr. Vansky? Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
I will find you guilty. I will send you the agreement. Is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Nothing else, Your Honor.
Michael, anything else, guys?
No, just the other 2 cases.
Okay, so as a part of the agreement is this DWI, they're going to dismiss your other 2 inhalant paraphernalia cases as well, okay? All right, and wish you best of luck. We'll have you do the TRAS, and then I guess just give me a heads up when you do it, will you? And then Craig, I'm going to reach out to you so you know, when we get it back, I'll let you know what it is, that way that you know as well. They may.
All right, I'm gonna leave it there. There's other things in life that get you thrills and chills, like wearing polka dot suits and putting things in your own ass. You don't have to go to sniffing fucking plain glue or oven cleaner, whatever the fuck she's up to. Ben, you got any final words? The freak ran off. He didn't want to wait in the back. I'm gonna
Well,
call it.
he says his computer is messing up over there in the chat.
All right, whatever.
Anyway, I do. So about this courting, you know, sometimes you mention wanting to be an administrator at the court.
Right.
Yeah. So that's interesting. You know, you picture these guys doing this, then is because there's a better way to do it.
Was that your final words?
No, it's a question.
Ask it again. I completely checked out. We're at that point.
Like the motivation to become an administrator of the court is to do it better.
Yeah, you're saying for me?
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm not so sure that I necessarily could do it better, or even if I can, that I want to.
I'm just saying, when that sort of whim comes to you, what's its like makeup?
Oh, that I could indirectly or directly teach the slaves through statute, policy, and code how to be honorable, good faith, presentable men and women. You know, obviously, as I said, directly or indirectly. So that would either require conversation that leads to conversion or some box time. Seems to work for all of us, you know, sitting with yourself, getting back to kind of source, you know, simplifying your life and deciding what's necessary and proper versus all the rest of the window dressing, right? But as much as that inclination comes up, I don't think that it's necessarily my or anyone else's position here karmically to play that role beyond what I do here. at the barrel of a gun. Maybe maybe that is the position that we're supposed to play here, because that's where the work is done.
Exactly. So is it possible that certain upbringing and feelings of inadequacy move you away from that, and actually what they want is to be unseated from doing this because this thing needs to be done in here for exactly the benefit that you were just suggesting, and that a different court can be made by those who occupy this position together that would actually be better and more efficient at doing this than they are, because they're only doing it to a limited capacity of understanding, and that they would actually yield to a better court that could help them more to understand their slavery and unslaving themselves, and that actually is the direction that needs to go in, that we actually do need to provide some kind of good rulership or shepherdship or courting for them until we can actually reach a state of equality. And to delete the hierarchy, we have to actually embrace aspects of the hierarchy and do a better job than they're doing at helping them unslave themselves.
Right, but I don't necessarily equate stewardship and shepherding to coercion and duress or the implication of threats. Right? It has to be a completely willful choice, which makes it seemingly very improbable that it'll ever take place on a mass scale. It's such as the quandary, I guess, that we find ourselves in. So to cross that boundary of using a system or group in order to impose my will, presuming my will is the will and that people are going to be better for it, that seems to be a risky game. Maybe one that
Sure.
I'm not willing to play beyond a certain point.
Unless there was a sensible reason that clicked through the circuit to do it, which I'm suggesting is if our destinies are actually all caught up together and what they do affects you directly, and this realm isn't just a test, but rather the final product.
We came to
Ergo,
this juncture at one point in the past, I think, where you disagree with me
did,
that
yeah.
that force is required in order to make this happen, and that you're mitigated from some karmic judgment for applying force where it is necessary. Again, the presumption that I am the all-knowing that can decide when that's necessary completely, to me, is a dangerous game to play, and I'm not willing to engage in that at this time. I'm rather more willing to suffer the wages of the foolishness and the corruption than I am to essentially engage in that for justified reasoning. Right.
Okay.
So if that may be a feeling of inadequacy, that may just be a sense of faith that there's something bigger going on here and that I don't get to decide beyond what's right for myself.
Okay. My only point is making it clear from the beginning of this particular broadcast, bit non-bit aside, why I don't see any reason to move into these modalities that people want to adopt sometimes from the Richie Roses and far before him and here on this broadcast and millions of others and disgruntled individuals everywhere who want to attack what they call the power elite. It would change nothing. There's no point. If there's a point to going after anything, it's the slaves or your people next to you that aren't equally yoked in moving towards the goal. If mathematically in the equation there was anything to use force, which is not the same as violence upon, it would be their violence of not enslaving themselves. If the conditional if that there's no reason to attack the system or attempt to take down the system, dethroning Satan, removing the obstacle or obstruction, is the slaves who don't want to enslave themselves because that's a form of violence. If that would be the only thing that would make sense, not a nondescript target out there of and we could say the name correctly. It's not Rothschild as though they were children. It's Rothschild, Red Shield. It's not about those kind of families or the Van Nines or any of these families. It's about you enslaving yourself. That's my point. You know, whether it be taken to any particular measure or extreme or whatever that would mean, the point is, even if it's just compelling speech, doing these things is to get slaves to enslave themselves at every level, because going outside to external targets isn't going to change anything. That's my point.
Right. But once I decide that I'm going to be part of putting people in boxes to get them to enslave themselves, I've enslaved them to enslave. Do you see Do you see the game here? So
I do see that as a
I'd
game, but
much
it's
rather
also
prefer the process of individuated choice in faith to align with higher self to get a result than to compel that in any way other than audibly, verbally, and physically with my example, right? I'm not here to carry
get
out
it.
judgments on other people to get them to do what I believe is true and what's right, even if objectively I understand that I'm correct. It's just not my role. I will not play that role. Like, I think it's a detriment to me and potentially everyone else, um, you know, that follows that is the prerequisite to a tyranny, to becoming everything that we say that we're not. You know,
My only
I'm not
immediate
afraid of going into judgment or whatever the outcome is of everyone else not doing what's true and what's right. I'm going to do it, and I have enough focusing me to do it. I'm not here to be the arbiter for anyone else.
my only immediate response to that without filling in many more layers and details is the idea that just by moving into the modality you would be a tyrant implies that within you is a tyrannical nature, and I don't believe that. Within them is a pre-existing tyrannical nature, so that when they move into the modality, they're not coming in good faith. They're not actually there to attempt fully to help the individual with authentic care to confront parts of themselves they otherwise wouldn't. So if the tyrant is in there to begin with, it's the idea that absolute power corrupts absolutely, or those who are corrupt are absolutely corrupt and going to be corrupt in every venue. And if you can actually maintain the line of good faith and purity when you move into this for real, then it would maintain that way. So it's not necessarily that you just become a tyrant by adopting the modality. There's different spirits that move through that. And that's the simplest way I could push back on that a little bit. If that
Right. I don't see a position where anybody could say any collection of words that's going to change what my heart
Good.
feels, if you will, or believes about this perspective. I have no need to. There is no imposing eventuality or fear that compels me to get off of my position of exemplifying what's true and what's right and surrendering the rest. I don't gain or lose anything by other folks choosing one way or the other.
And that makes sense unto itself.
Yeah, I guess you could call me one of those soul journey type people, because I guess in this moment I'm realizing that other people, quote unquote, winning through actualization and realization doesn't change my walk. Other folks not doing that and putting us all into slavery doesn't change my walk. Does it potentially change the macro outcome? Yes. I'm not as afraid of that as I am becoming what I say that I'm, quote unquote, against, or not believing is as functional as it could be.
And therein, to me, lies a psychological level of reconciliation you haven't reached yet. My analysis, because that last line to me covers through the back end forward what's operating, because of the concern of becoming the perception morally of what you're against. I contend it would not be that just because it's in the same form. But
I don't believe that the fear of man and what man's going to do to somebody is what compels somebody to have the fear of God and not obeying that. I think that's a false power construct. Well, that it is, because you're saying that you believe in the outcome based education system, that if you put enough fear on somebody and the power that you wield with care, of course, that they're going to turn from their wicked ways and do what's true and what's right to avoid having to go back to a box. That's not the reason you're supposed to do what's true and what's right. It's because it's true and it's right, not to avoid punishment. So I don't see a solution in me going into a system to play a part as a pawn in a system that seeks to use worldly fear rather than a fear of God, and not doing what's true and what's right, and just understanding that that's going to lead to your outcome. Me having to be the individuated teacher or facilitator for that experience.
I knew. I have a good way to succinctly come back to all that, which is my response to Jack Talcott, who did not show up, unfortunately, which is the reason that comes to you to say that, Jack, is because it is that simple. And when I've examined it at every different level and made it that simple, you don't want it to be that simple, because what it becoming that simplified does is take away every excuse that you've ever had or every excuse that you've never had. When all the ability to wander, drift, and play with this thing is taken away from you by having it brought down to this level of an exactness. There's no solipsism and no gap in this, that we can understand it fully and completely and make it as simple as possible. It takes away every excuse to do fuck all anything else but actualize and be here what you've meant to become to be. That's the answer. Why it bothers you that calling it arrogant as if it's known everything. No, because everything is not that hard to make singular and direct and clear. It just takes every excuse you have away from yourself to ponder and meander around this thing.
Pretty much, it's just comes down to some folks would rather mentally masturbate and edge all day without ever reaching a climax. You know, and then there's the rest of us who, you know, we see the value in having something to show for it, right? It was kind of like an old Carlin joke, you know. At least when I'm done mentally masturbating, I'll have something to show for it, right?
Yeah, fair enough. Appreciate you
Yeah,
entertaining
it's
that.
easy to ponder the mysteries than to just take the revelation and run with it and actualize and realize. That requires courage and balls and vision and a whole bunch of other able words that the majority seemingly doesn't want to have to employ. So I concur with that analysis. That
Well, there's a
Jack's whole
pattern,
bit and his
there's
whole
a-
rap is using people, places, and things to avoid actually having to actualize and realize and claim it was everyone else's fault why he didn't do so, which again is another fool's errand that's only going to leave him lacking in fulfillment by the end of his life and by the end of the day, like it does so many other days.
Well, there's a different thing in there. Sure, Jack does it's everyone else's fault at the end of that. But more commonly, you have for example, take this way of putting it, because everybody can relate to it, the festival goer who does their drug process. And effectively, what they want to do is have this pseudo or real, even spiritual awakening through a psychedelic, through different substances, putting themselves in an up or downer pattern, whatever. And they have some level, or even without the substances, they have some level of realization or neuroepiphanic awakening. And then after that, because what they become have this Pavlovian addiction to is that sensation of discovery. They're trapped in this not neotenized child, but they're trapped in this adolescent mode of that moment of edging toward the edging, and having the discovery. So then what the inclination to do is to numb themselves out, put themselves back to sleep, forget the stuff they already realized and actualized so they can have the moment of sensational discovery again. And you'll hear this in their grammar and their vernacular and the communication where man, I just want to discover, like they want to go back to sleep so they can never reach maturity or actualization so they can have the moment of discovery again. It's that euphoric moment of, it's like saying basic stuff all the time. Like people who are always saying something that seems kind of inspiring and insightful, but it's basic. Like, oh man, I just discovered there's energy again. Now I'm going to have to knock myself out, numb myself out from that because I don't want to actually actualize and mature from beyond that point in order so I can just go back to sleep and then wake up again and have the moment of sensational discovery again.
You know what I equated to as you were speaking? This aspect of us that I think I won't speak for everyone. I think I've experienced it. I may still do. I also see the other side of things. But this being caught up in the love affair, right? It's kind of what it reminds me of, where you want to kind of always meet someone new, so you can always do the first stage of the love affair. It's so exciting. It's all new. It's revealing. It's all the things, right? But then the other side of things are, how do you cultivate that long-term sort of macro co-creative actualized realized relationship, right? They can't be done if you're constantly in the wanton space of the lusting honeymoon phase for something new, right? Or something that's actually rather old but seems novel, right? It seems new, but it's just an you know, an old habit with a new fixation, right? It's like, oh, I had the thought today. I had another thought today. And it's like, yeah, but what are you doing? What are you being? What are you creating? What's the value?
There's Talcott, and there's Talcott.
Yeah.
Also, I feel forever tainted for the word honeymoon. I can never hear it again after Gauchi. I just feel mind raped every time I hear the word
I
honeymoon.
want you to go ahead. Ooh, Ben, yeah, that tone. You're violating the original law. I'm gonna go ahead and ask you to just speak with a loving energy right into the flaps of the universe, pleasing, wettening tones, non-creepy, wettening universe, vaginal tone.
beloved wet.
The beloved. I swear, when that's you. They say you have a gouchy vibe to you, right? But like when you do gouchy,
Well,
I get PTSD. I start imagining
I'm
like
gonna put this
I'm in a
on
box.
record. I'm gonna put this on record, and I speak in cosmic absolutes, whether people like it or not. After I flushed out what Gouchy is literally a production of the other side, who's literally here to mock and abuse what I actually am. So
Pretty much. It's pretty much.
If I
And
have
that
a
goes for
Gouchy
Talcott
vibe,
as
it's
well.
because he's yes. Anyway, yes, yes. So he's parodying and pantomiming me in a very twisted and backdoor, ass rapey kind of ass rapey baby way. Not opposite that. And so anyway, take that as you will. I appreciate you, Paul. That was a good.
We got to get some more Gouchy speeches where it just calls up this imagery of him filleting someone alive while he gives this loving speech. That's all that translates, is that he has someone in a box somewhere he's torturing while he narcs and pretends to be the most loving. They're always the most loving, caring, while they want to shut you up and change history and reality, and they want to do a nice,
Paul,
pleasing tone.
Catch this, Paul. What about this? Love.
Yeah, you got to do the. I forget his whole rap. I used to have it down, but it's been a while. The Lion Tribe of Judah.
This is not Paul. This is not the way of Lion Kings of Judah.
Yeah,
The way of Lion Kings is to build ourselves up in the universe. We're gonna speak pleasing, man to man.
Soon as I get even the least bit critical of him or Jack or anyone in the room, ooh, Paul, yeah, you were right in the law. You were so in alignment, and now I gotta stomp you. No, that's not going to be acceptable. Jack, thank you. Then he started thanking Jack for throwing me out. Jack, thank you for protecting this holy space of divine sharing.
Paul just didn't quite get
Brother Paul, right?
We were working on something delightful here.
And that's what the demon does. It gaslights and plays power games to the point where you want to equalize with them, right? Where it calls up that space in you where you want to put him in a box and fillet him to teach him that his lies and his power games and his nonsense. It's just, we don't need it. But see, then I just became what I'm not a fan of. At one moment, I had images of.
At a certain point in my actualization, I just took on to realize that itself is the next layer, because it holds you in that if you do this, you're just going to be what I am. And finally I said, fuck you. I don't agree.
Put him in the box. Cut him up.
I don't agree with you. You're taking advantage of the kindness and compassion and sensitivity that exists inside me to say, if I do this, I'm going to be just like you. And I say, fuck you. I was never like you. And when I do this, I'm not going to be anything like you. We're going to reach a productive point of developmental fruitfulness that isn't in you. And I finally just said, fuck you. That's a lying satanic trap that you put me on. I'm not listening to this. I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to be like you, because I was never like you to begin with. That's how I shut that one up. Fine.
You're still being like them, because you're basically saying you're going to kill for love. I'm going to skin you for love and truth and God.
I get it.
Jesus. That's it. You can't escape the loop then, right?
There's
the way I escape the loop is they exist in their parallel, simultaneously apprehended universe, and I'm over here on my trajectory, on my timeline, living in alignment as I see it, right? And we don't even have to cross paths on this journey beyond a certain point of replication.
That is really.
Why is this lag? I got to get out of here, Ben. Do you see this? This is not okay with me. I'm not okay with this.
It's not okay. And
we're like back to silent film era.
Can we at least agree that we can do some consequence on Levi?
Yeah, hold on. Let me set the vibe here. Because that's what I have going on here. We're back to the silent era. Yeah. I have a $1,200 computer that it doesn't allow me. It doesn't allow me to stream in a smooth fashion. So we're resurrecting the silent film era here
But Paul,
of sepia
it
tone.
can do
VR.
VR.
We're broadcasting now in sepia tone 8mm. The first broadcast ever.
You need
Coming
to go back
live.
you need to just go back to a reel to reel.
Right. That's what I feel like I'm on right now. And then they go, oh, that's okay. That's okay. Don't worry about that. Don't even bring that up to Levi for 1,200. I go, no, I'm bringing it up. We're going to have a talk now, Mr. Computer Scientist. Could you give me the final words? I got to get the hell out of here. It's just absolute insanity.
My
Nothing
final
I
words are
buy
always-
works properly.
Always
I'm
the
cursed.
same.
In order to be the god of all media, there's always sacrifice somewhere in this life. I haven't gone to prison, but everything I buy doesn't work properly. That's where
your
it gets
prison.
me. That's
your
it.
prison.
That's my hell. All day, every day.
Mm-hmm. It'll get you here, there, everywhere. Depends where you want to take it. Which way do you want to get back?
I got a Talcott. Doesn't work. All right. not even one time. Can't get it to work.
Mr. Talcott, you were not performing the way
My
we'd like
invention, Jack Talcott, doesn't fucking work. Right? God sent
come
it to
our
me.
court and you don't perform for us. You're
Right?
underperforming.
Yeah. Get up here and you jester, jack-o'-lantern jester. Get up here and
Come
dance
on,
with bells
intransigent slave.
Yeah.
We need you to
He's too good
perform.
for that now. He was over there yesterday denying that I gave him his whole reality on this live stream for whatever that's worth. He's over there fighting against that. I go, Talcott, it doesn't even matter. I go, you're a complete loser failure. This whole thing is a bust. Why are you hanging on to the dream that you did this? I go, there's nothing even happening and you're fighting it.
Just
I go,
out of
I'm doing
curiosity,
sepia tone 8mm broadcasts over there now. I resurrected the silent era. I go, just admit it. I gave you a live stream. I gave you an audience. I gave you some fucking work ethic. So just stop being such a lazy fuck. Show up every day. That was the biggest mistake I've ever made, is encouraging him to show up and broadcast 7 days a week. Try to do what I do. It's been terrible. It's the worst thing I've ever done.
The thing was, though, that once Tyler got up in there, he started putting things in between the reels. You couldn't quite see him, but the children could see.
Absolute insanity. Hail Talcott. We were on the brink of World War III, world shattering events. All enslaved and pioneered the sepia tone silent film era of online broadcasting. Jack Talcott was ranting and raving daily, saying he was going to end wars and legal secrets any day now. It's fucking music. All right, come on, give me the final words. I gotta get the hell out of here, and I gotta.
Good night on Slavia.
Thank you, Ben.
Good night. Yeah.
So annoyed right now. You have no idea. Oh man, I'm gonna be up early tomorrow. Fucking complain. I'm gonna be in someone's face tomorrow, complaining, doing what Americans do best nowadays. Fucking complaining. Done being nice. I've been too nice. I even got the fucking warranty, which I never do. Broke one of my own rules. Spent an extra $150 for a damn warranty. 3-year warranty. Not even 3 days. We got problems. It's even the point of that. The point of a warranty if nothing's working from the beginning. Paul's 8mm broadcast towers ever down. He hates it. I'm doing my broadcast from in Skyrider. It shows up and then it disappears. Look, you can barely even see the movement. I'm doing the whole broadcast in skywriting, and using skywriting and church bells and smoke signals. That's the next broadcast. All right, I'm out of here. I don't know. Do you know where you are right now? I don't even know where I am right now. Paul Enslaved, don't you get it on the way out? Back tomorrow, somewhere between 12 and 5 MDT. Maybe we might go on early or late, depending on what the day has to offer. Depending on even if I wake up and I'm still alive and I go, it happened again. That means I got to do a broadcast. So we're going to be on the road most of the day tomorrow. That means I'm probably coming on extra early or extra late. To be announced. Watch for that. Hi. The government is a figment of your imagination. It's an artificial, intelligent overlay. It is only a concept. It's a play. It's a performance. It's an act. They love when I have to fucking go off. I can look at something from a few different sides.
God damn
I
it,
can
Paul.
see where it all connects despite what they're telling me. Right? They just look at what they're told. I look at what makes sense. You know, they'll say I'm doing word salad. They'll say that I'm just
You can
going
keep
off on my own
repeating the
tangent,
words
but
and
that
the
is
actions
because my
over.
mind works in a different way than the majority of the slaves. You guys are all in your feelers and never see the logic behind life, how it all moves together and fits together and how it works. So when you learn to check your feelers and move them out of the way and just observe with clarity and presence,
He
and
is
awareness,
constantly
you will
in
make
his
the
feet.
right determinations and the right decisions. It's all the same shit over and over again. And no matter how much I speak on self-empowerment, self-mastery, self-reflection, you all have a belief and a feeling that's going to trump that. Ancient wisdom that works for everybody who embodies the path. You're not your own God.
Don't
I know you want
appreciate it?
But you're not. As soon as you get in line with what that thing wants from you or what is, you'll stop having these fucking problems. I view all the rest of this shit as a distraction. Governance is an act and a play, and it requires your belief and participation. The culture, the society, the legal system, the legal society, policy, statute, and code is the original artificial intelligence and state of consciousness that has been overlaid on the NI. And that's why you have domesticated slaves and you have uncivilized.
When you shut up, you'll understand.
You don't want to accept that there's an objective morality that exists in this realm that every man and woman can comprehend using objective logic. It's not about wanting the fame and the riches. It's about being good at what you do, being recognized for it, and then when you get to the dance, telling all the people to suck your dick in public.
Fucking liar.
You never wanted to bond with them anyway. That's the whole point of being true to yourself, is so that wherever you get to that you're meant to go, you don't have to change that. Quite the opposite. That's what got you there. I got a direct link to that spirit and to the people who chinked you in. You can't get in between them. That's beyond worldly power. That's where you go beyond the ceiling that they don't want you to go beyond. That's the stage of inspiration and empowerment. They can't control you no more. They can't influence you no more. They can't put fear on you and things around you to stop you from being who and what you're meant to be.
God damn it, Paul.
That's the game for me. That's the game for all of us, I thought. Actualized and realized. Written on our heart, first and foremost, through common sense, that if not overlaid with some dogma and indoctrination, we could all communicate harmoniously. Right? So I'm never going to accept, unless my perspective completely changes, that there isn't an objective morality here that can be hit as a standard and understood by any being with the capacity of objective logic, understanding right from wrong. Okay? So you just want to say statute, policy, and code is law, and the law is the law, even though they're making it up and revising it constantly. And it's not always in line with objective right from wrong. So you're completely misunderstood. You guys talk from feelers. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Your etymology is never sound because you don't care to look into the words and terms. This should not be that difficult. But for beings who lost the ability to imagine, I'm sure that it's quite the Herculean task. You should be able to zoom out and see all the connections and how it relates. You can't do that? You have no business speaking to someone else who can. There is no selfless component to you folks' consciousness. And it's evident because you constantly project onto others how selfish you think they are, because you don't think that that state of consciousness is attainable. Embarrassing.
To General Milley, do you think that these documents should be turned over to the United States Congress? And do you think that both General Donahue and Admiral Vasely should testify before Congress?
Sure, I absolutely do. I believe transparency. You're the board of directors for this corporation called the American government.
God of all media.